Welcome to this class. In the last class, we discussed how to analyze a case. We took the example of the IT major company in India, one of the IT major companies in India, that is Infosys. And tried to explain how to analyze the performance of the company, taking into account the various ratios that we had gone through in the previous classes. So, the financial ratios, whether it is a profitability ratio or the liquidity ratio or any other ratios which we considered to explain the performance. Now, after having gone through all this, let us go to the next step. So, what we have looked at is how does a company do an SFAS analysis or drop an SFAS matrix, that is a strategic factor analysis matrix. Then to drop this SFAS matrix, the company makes use of the external factor analysis matrix, then the internal factor analysis matrix, then comes out with the SFAS matrix. I took the example of a hypothetical Indian company. I took the example of an existing American company, consumer durable company, to explain the different points with respect to all these matrices, whether it is the EFAS or the IFAS and the SFAS. Then we looked at the performance indicators with respect to the companies for case analysis and analyzed the performance of Infosys. Now, let us look at why are we doing all this, that is why are we looking at the analysis of these companies, so that we can be a company's business strategy can be more focused. Now, let us look at this business strategy in some depth now, a little more. What is a business strategy? A company can make use of its business strategy to improve the competitive position of its business units and products stroke services within this specific market segment or industry. What does it mean? It means that any company will have number of business units. That is what I explained to you in the earlier classes. Then a business unit becomes a strategic business unit for the company when it has its own products or product line, it has its own markets, and it has a dedicated strategic manager for drawing up strategies. Okay. So, three essential conditions. Now, you can look at any unit, any company operating in a competitive market having a number of different SBUs, number of SBUs. They are different in the sense each of them may be catering to different products or different product lines. So, this is the characteristic of any company in the present day Indian context. So, we name it, whether it is a public sector or a private sector, you will have different SBUs for different companies. Now, each of these SBUs it has to drop a business strategy in order to be effective in this competitive market. Each of the business units has to drop a business strategy. And what is this business strategy? which the company has to draw. This is what we are going to have a look, a more in-depth look in this class. The generic strategies suggested by Porter, that is cost leadership, differentiation and focus, could help in drawing up the business strategy. So, in order to drop the business strategy, the company should make use of the generic strategies of cost leadership, differentiation and focus, which we have discussed in fair amount of detail in the earlier classes. Whereas, the corporate strategy asks what industry stroke industries should the company be in. The business strategy asks how the company should compete or cooperate in each industry. Kindly note the difference. So, whereas in the corporate strategy, you are looking at the industry as a whole and then saying what industry should the company be in. The business strategy asks how the company should compete or cooperate in each industry. So, how should the company go about competition, facing competition or cooperating. This cooperating can acquire different routes. It can be through mergers, it can be through acquisition. So, this is where in a strategic environment the role of M&A becomes extremely important. So, that is why in each of these large companies you have a dedicated unit or a dedicated team which is given the task of assessing these M&As only. So, this is the first this thing. Now, in order, let us now come to the Indian context. In order to drop this business strategy, we said cost becomes an important part. How is the cost dynamics working in India? This is what we are trying to see. Now, before we go to this cost dimensions in India, let us see, let me take you through one exhibit which is given in my book, that is the differentiation focus strategy. That is I just told you, in order to drop the business strategy, a company should go to make use of the generic strategies suggested by Porter. One such example which is given to you is from this book. This is the differentiation focus strategy, that is the differentiation focus at Morgan Motor Company. This is from page number 110 of the book on strategic management. What does it say? By focusing on the values of traditional British top down sports car motoring, the Morgan Motor Company has successfully found a way to differentiate itself from all competitors. Once competing with the respected British marques of MG, Triumph, Austin Healey, Jaguar and Aston Martin, the Morgan is now the sole occupant of a small but durable propitious niche. Founded in 1919 by Henry F. S. Morgan, the company continues to use the same factory in England's West Midlands to produce automobiles seemingly unchanged from those produced before World War II. Although Morgans, known as Mocs by admirers, have state of the art engines with fuel injection, electronic ignition and pollution control devices, the basic front end suspension design has remained relatively unchanged since the company's founder built the first Morgan by hand in 1908. Although the chassis is based on a simple steel frame, the body is still constructed on a hand built wooden frame of specially aged ash. The Morgan's hand cut body panel must be fitted by hand onto the car. The company makes 3 models ranging in price from $35,000 to $50,000. It has no long term debt and enjoys steady growth in sales and profits. Sports cars with reputations comparable to those of the Morgan sell for $150,000 and upwards. For the person who needs a personalized car, the Morgan is available in 35,000 hand painted colors. Note that 35,000 hand painted colors. The company employs just enough skilled workers to build 10 cars a week for an annual capacity of fewer than 500 cars. Because the company receives about 600 to 800 new orders each year, the current waiting list for a new Morgan is about 2,500 to 5,000 cars, about 10 years production. The firm's response to a rapidly changing automobile industry seems perfectly tuned to staying in its propitious niche. According to Charles Morgan, grandson of the founder, we believe the Morgan policy of gradual and carefully considered change will enable us to maintain the car's qualities and unique appeal and thereby ensure its survival for the foreseeable future. So, what is the company trying to do? It is differentiating its product in such a wonderful manner in the sports car segment, and also being highly cost effective. So, if you really see a comparable car costing more than $150,000 available to you between $35,000 to $50,000 from Morgan. Now, that is how a company makes use of differentiation, that is how a company makes use of focus to focus on the market segment. So, this is just one example. Now, let us look at the dynamics of cost or the cost dynamics in India. By saying the cost dynamics in India, what are we trying to say? What is the type of environment in which the companies have to produce, in which the companies have to operate? Now, what I have tried to bring out to you is a very simple example. I have taken it from the textiles. What can be mentioned with respect to the cost levels in India for this segment textiles? For comparable pre-tax return on investment, that is a pre-tax ROI, a typical, this is the comparisons, a typical Indian plant with a capacity of 6,000 tons per year polyester production has 84% higher selling price than a typical polyester plant with 30,000 tons per year capacity in USA. Even with the same capacity in India, 24% higher selling prices. So, what does it mean? It means that the cost suppose you take the ROI pre-tax return on investment. The capacity of the steel plant between India and USA, what is the type of difference that you are finding? In India it is 6,000 tons per year, whereas in the USA it is 30,000 tons per year. So, 5 times more. That is, you can establish a plant which can have 5 times higher capacity, that is 500% more. Okay. Now, suppose you established the same plant in India, that is 30,000 tons per year in USA and 30,000 tons per year in India also, then what is going to happen? Even with the same plant capacity, the cost dynamics in the Indian situation is such that the selling price will be 24% higher. So, you are not deriving any cost advantage, even though you may say we have got surplus labor, that is our labor cost is extremely competitive, all those types of things really not working out when it comes to the market dynamics situation. This is what is happening in textiles, but the similar trends are obtained in other industries also, like tire and tube, aluminum, steel. What might be the typical causes? Why is it happening? We have a labor advantage, labor cost advantage, India does not lack in its natural resources, all those types of things. We have all the types of plus points there, but still why our product cost is coming out to be higher? The possible causes: our excise duties are higher, similarly customs, sales tax levies, then the uneconomical production levels with which we operate. So, this is what is called, this is what I mentioned, the economies of scale should be kept in mind while operating the plant in the earlier classes. Then many of our units use obsolete technology, with the result the production suffers, then consequently the sales also suffers. So, the profits also suffer, come down, high break even points, excess dependence on import of semi finished goods. So, high costs have narrowed domestic consumer markets and there is heavy competition in international markets. Larger size, now what is the solution for this? There is no point in the Indian industry, especially the manufacturing industry like the ones which we discussed, looking at only small size plants. They must be willing to look at large size plants. This is what is happening now, as you are seeing many states, whether you name the state of Orissa or even now recently the state of Karnataka going in for large size steel plants, or at least there is a MOU signed between this Mittal group, who is a well known steel manufacturer in the globe, from India, to start up steel plants in Orissa and also in the state of Karnataka. So, this is the way things are changing even in the Indian context. So, in other words, what does it mean? The manufacturers realize that it is in their own interest to build a large size plant. So, larger size plants not only save on initial investment cost, but also on operational costs, that is cost versus size of production. Now, let us look at cost versus market. What happens, suppose it is a seller's market. What do you mean by it is a seller's market? There are number of sellers selling the same product. Now, how should in such a situation, how does the price of the product get reflected in the marketplace? What will be the price that will be charged for the product? So, in such a situation, what is going to happen? A product's price will be equal to internal cost plus the desired profit margin. Suppose it is a buyer's market. There are number of sellers producing different products, but making all differentiations. Then this first line, that is a product's price, will be equal to internal cost plus the desired profit margin. So, the company can say I want 10% profits minimum, it will work in the marketplace. Suppose it is a buyer's market. So, large number of companies producing the same product, buyer is having a choice to pick between A, B, C, D like that. Then what is going to happen? The profit margin for the company will get dictated by the prevailing market conditions. How does it get reflected in quantitative terms? So, in a buyer's market, the profit margin will be permissible price minus the internal cost. It may result in profit or it may also go to loss. Then or the tolerable cost would be equal to the permissible price minus the acceptable profit. Now, in the light of this cost dynamic scenario which we are looking at, it may be better to look at the experience curves. These experience curves give for a company a different type of approach towards the market. That is, you make use of the experience of the production shop worker to come out with more number of units. That is, as his experience increases in a particular line of production, it is very possible that he may be able to increase his production, because he is going through the same production cycle over and over again. There is a learning which is taking place. So, when that learning which is taking place is getting reflected in higher production, what is going to happen? The unit manufacturing cost will come down. So, the unit manufacturing cost, when it comes down, what is going to happen? So, just I am giving you a small example of this experience curve by bringing out this in this manner. The unit manufacturing cost decreases when production quantity increases. When production quantity increases, what is going to happen? The time of direct labor components for each item also increases. So, that is the type of this thing which is going to happen. So, this is the direct labor components for each item also increases. Now, suppose you are operating in a 80% experience curve. So, this experience curve is a typical hyperbola. Suppose you are operating in a, let us say, a typical 80% experience curve, and suppose your accumulated production, let us say, is 2 units and the cost per unit is rupees 100. Now, at the 80% experience curve, if your production goes up to 4, what is going to happen? The learning is going to take place in this manner, 100 into 0.80. So, the cost per unit comes down to 80. So, when it goes up to 16, what is going to happen? The cost per unit comes down to 51. So, when you go further and further, the cost per unit may not decrease, it may reach a plateau, and you may say this is the maximum experience curve benefit that we can derive for this product or product line. So, what are the causes for this decrease in this cost per unit due to this experience curve? Why does the cost come down? It may be due to improved labor productivity, it can be due to increased specialization, or it can be due to innovation in production methods, value engineering and fine tuning, then the line balancing, rationalization of methods and systems. So, in other words, what is it, what are we trying to say? We are trying to say the company should make use of the learning process of the workers to come out with products at lower costs. When you come out with lower cost products at lower manufacturing costs, then it is possible that you may be able to compete better in this competitive marketplace. A few more points on this experience curve. Experience curves are simple approximations of extremely complex real time relationships. Extreme care is to be exercised to get reliable results. Distinguish time from experience, unit experience, and consider influence of time. These are highly very important points to note. Distinguish time from experience. What does it mean? A person might have spent a long time in the organization, but might not have really improved his skills. Then his longer stay or duration of stay in the organization has really not benefited the organization. So, this is why we say quality is very important. How does quality get reflected? Quality gets reflected in the quality of the labor which goes into the production of the product also. Sometimes we see in so many states, so many times power cuts getting affected. So, one of the common comments you hear is these people are not able to efficiently manage the power sector, that is to the whether it is the different electricity supply companies or the distribution companies, ESCOMs, whatever you have in different states. So, this is the way people comment, and what are they trying to, many times they say, even in a city like Bangalore, if you see a rain which comes with some force is able to disrupt power supply for hours, which does not happen in a developed country. Why? Many times even at the start of the rain itself, you find that the electricity companies become cautious, switch off the power, but does not happen in developed countries. This is called mastery over energy. We have not yet gotten the mastery over energy or the energy self sufficiency. So, this is the way the quality of your manufacturing or the quality of the services is going to impact the price and also the output in the marketplace. That is what is going to happen in the present scenario. Now, given this type of sensitivity analysis, you can do what is called a sensitivity analysis with respect to fixed costs of a company, a variable costs of the company and or price. So, price of the product. So, just look at the sensitivity analysis with respect to break even. A few more points on the break even we will go along when we go to the next slide. So, the sensitivity analysis with respect to break even can be with respect to fixed cost, variable cost and or price. What is going to happen? A decrease in fixed costs is likely to result in decrease in break even point. So, when we are looking at break even analysis, what is break even analysis? When your total costs will be equal to total revenue, that will be your break even point. So, when you do a sensitivity analysis, this sensitivity can be done with respect to fixed costs, variable costs under price. So, this is where the whole experience curve also starts fitting in. So, what are we trying to do in this whole experience curve concept also? By working and working over and over again, the variable cost per unit you are trying to come down or bring it down. So, what is going to happen? The decrease in fixed cost results in decrease in break even point. Profitability at a particular volume of production improves with lower fixed costs. What happens when the variable cost increases? Increase in variable cost has marked effect on break even point and eats up profits. So, this variable cost is the one which holds a higher key, the lever is higher. Similarly, a decrease in variable costs results in improved profitability. An increase in permissible prices, break even point comes down and vice versa. At a particular volume of production, profitability improves, price most sensitive instrument followed by variable cost and fixed cost. So, this is price is the most sensitive instrument in the marketplace. This is what most of the studies bring out. So, lot of research takes place, market research on how to price the product, how can the company derive some strategic advantages by differential pricing or segment pricing, all those types of things. Normally, a break even analysis is linear, sometimes it can also be non-linear. So, when it is non-linear, when prices may be, what is this non-linear break even analysis? When prices may be consciously reduced to gain additional sales volume and market share or in response to the company's competitors' action. So, the assumptions on which this break even analysis works many times unrealistic also. Fixed costs fixed for all production volumes, variable cost do not fall with increasing level of production, total cost and total revenue vary in linear relationship with output, then maximizing profit before interest and tax is the desirable business objective. Many companies may have different business objectives also. So, this is a type of thing which you have with respect to this break even analysis. This break even analysis, if you really see, it can be represented by these equations. The total cost is equal to the fixed cost plus the variable cost into the quantity quantity produced or the quantity which the company is able to really take out of its production lines. What will be the total revenue? The total revenue is the price charged by into the number of units sold. So, this is the way it will be. What happens at break even point? The total revenue will be equal to total cost. Then what is that characterized by? This is P into Q break QB will be equal to FC plus VC into QB, and the QB, that is a break even quantity, will be equal to FC divided by P minus VC. This P minus VC is referred to as the unit contribution. So, this is the way break even analysis can be represented, and that is how the sensitivity analysis with respect to break even done. Now, as I mentioned, this break even analysis is one of the methods, a simple method by which you find out whether using the experience curve, whether you can bring down the variable cost. If you are able to bring down the variable cost per unit of the product, it is likely to result in improved profitability. But with all these good points which were mentioned, kindly note that this experience curve is a simple concept, not a very complicated concept. It can be a good framework for marginal considerations for predicting industrial scenario with respect to future costs, profit margins and corresponding cash flows for own and competitors' operations. Has done very well in segments such as PC units. What are the implications in such as PC market? What are the implications of this? A few large plants with standalone production would be able to supply global marketing efforts, should be fully coordinated with manufacturing plants, lowering prices should not be with inferior quality, then more applicable when demand is elastic. What are the limitations of this experience curve? You find that determination of cost is one of the real hurdles. So, may not be able to determine very correctly. So, data regarding competitors you may not be able to get fully. A late market entrant has to operate at lower initial prices in order to survive, because the others might have already gained the advantages of the experience curve. This is the way the present situation you may find yourself in. All this brings you to this competitive market brings you to some considerations or some terminologies which are used frequently in the market setup, in the present market setup. We say a company has gone into doom loop. What is this doom loop? Why does the company go into a doom loop? This doom loop is a self reinforcing process. It can drive an organization into cyclical situations from which an organization finds it difficult to extract itself. What should the organization do to avoid getting into this doom loop? It is required to upgrade the products, services and efficiency of distribution channels. Now, suppose the organization has got stuck in the doom loop, what should it do? It should refocus on the small business units, and a change has to be brought about in the firm's culture. I am just giving you an example of how this doom loop works like. So, this is an example just to illustrate to you how does the doom loop actually operate in the real situation, that is a real market situation. What you may find, if you really see, what is it that you are seeing? You are in a hyper competitive market, you are in a competitive market. What do you mean by saying that you are in a competitive market? The product that the company is producing is being produced by number of other players also. So, in order to stay put or stay ahead in this type of a market, what do you mean by saying stay ahead or stay put? You want to retain your market share, stay ahead, you want to increase your market share. You may think that in order to do this, the firm may think that price could be a good method to do this. That is, you cut the price of the product. When you cut the price of the product, you expect the demand for the product to increase. If not increase, at least it will help you to hold on to your if not increase your profits, it will help you to hold on to your market share. So, let us look at this scenario. A firm cuts price to hold on to the market share. Now, you are not the only player in the market. Then what does the competitor do? The competitor matches this firm's price and yet is profitable. So, your competitor may be using methods by which not only is he matching your price, but he is also making profits compared to you. Then what is going to happen? A competitor's innovative and competitors innovate, that is his innovativeness. What does it do for the company? It helps in coming out with better products at lower cost. So, innovation holds the key in this type of a marketplace. Suppose you do not innovate, you only start having the same products or the product line, not able to improve on the features, but the competitor innovates. Then what is going to happen? The product becomes better, the same product what you are putting out, he may also be putting out, but better because of the improved characteristics and at a lower cost. So, what is going to happen in such a situation? The competitor is likely to gain market share at your expense, that is at the firm's expense. So, you are not able to match him. So, he gains at your expense. Then what is going to happen? Now, you start thinking, why did this happen? You find out the competitor is innovating, he is into this innovation mode. So, in order to go into this innovation mode, the company requires investments. In order to make this investment, the company should have got adequate margins. You find that in the case of your firm, you have got inadequate margins to reinvest. So, this is a situation where you find that employees are telling the company, we also want to innovate, but the company is not able to go along with the employees because it does not have adequate margin. So, you find yourself in this block, that is firm has inadequate margins to reinvest. Then what is going to happen? You have a situation where employees are wanting to really match the other players in a marketplace. You are not able to really help them with the margins that are required, that is the investment that is required, you are not able to match that. Then what is going to happen? Employees become demoralized. Then what is going to happen when employees become demoralized? The quality of the product and the services become poor. So, when this type of a doom loop starts coming in, the quality of the product and the services become poor. So, the best example for this doom loop exercise, many of the public sector units have gone into this doom loop, not able to match the private sector. The latest one to happen is that of the Mysore lamps right here in Bangalore, was coming out with good quality, that is ISI certified quality tube lights, incandescent lamps, all those types of things. Because of the different types of administrative glitches to which the company got into, it found itself competing in a market and getting into this type of a doom loop exercise. So, getting to extricate itself from this doom loop proved very difficult for the company. The result is the company was forced to shut down such a nice company, coming out with good products, no problem with the product of the company, but still not able to hold on. Why not able to hold on? Because of this so many of the operational problems into which it got itself into. The result is the company itself had to close down. So, that is the type of result which these doom loops can impose on a company. Okay. We stop here, we continue in the next class. Thank you.